Hello, all you hammer swinging hooligans. It's me, Only Run Very Noob, back bringing you Bravo gameplay. Today we are taking on the mirror. I think this might be the first mirror I've posted on my channel. My sideboard plan is to run all of my cards. I used to play just 60. I tried doing a little more than 60. Now I'm trying every card. I think a backup plan of fatigue is like a super reasonable plan. A lot of times you'll navigate yourself to an end game where you're both just kind of hammering for 6 and blocking for 6. And if that's all the room you have, if that's like the only thing that you have room to do at the end, then you can easily just like count your opponent's deck, and if they have less cards than you, you're gonna win. Um, Obviously, dropping down to 1 life hurts this more because then they can just like hammer for 4 and then arsenal a card, and the hammer for 4 will still take 2 cards from you unless you have a Sink Blow or a Fate Foreseen left, and then they can manage to keep like a 3-card hand to tear asunder you, or like Spinal Crush, or even like Crippling Crush off a Surge, or even like Pummel. So 3-card hands are generally a lot more threatening than 2-card hands. But I'm getting kind of ahead of myself here. I'm just talking about fatigue. Having a bunch of cards helps you in case your opponent has tempo for a prolonged period of time and you just have to block with a bunch of cards. As we know, attacking fatigues faster than blocking, because you're going to have to like block one of their attacks with like 3 cards some of the times. Not too sure though. I do like 60 cards so that you get to your pitch stack faster. But I haven't. I've kind of liked 70 cards too because I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility. So we win the die roll and we go first. And we immediately see our opponent still has Iron Wrought legs compared to our Civic Steps. So that's kind of a little bonus that we get. Although we have to navigate the game in such a way that they don't get a bonus from the Quicken tokens. Zealous Belting is normally a card I like to save for tempo, but there's nothing else I can really do with this hand. And because I'm on more cards than them, I kind of want to enact a fatigue game plan. So I'm going to probably just make a Surge, play Zealous Belting, and then hammer, which will require them block with all 4. So they don't really get to filter their hand, they just get to trade it for a new one. And we get to get 4 cards fatigued from their deck, and when we only have to fatigue 1 card from our deck. If one of these blues was like an aura, I'd probably just play the aura and arsenal the Zealous Belting, but with not having too much to do here, I think I'm just trying to like clear their whole hand out. There's even a chance we get them to block with like good cards, like they just blocked with a Zealous Belting. Accidentally pitched my yellow instead of my blue, so now they're going to know what I have in my arsenal. My chair is kind of loud today. Our hand, we could block 3 and looking to arsenal our Sink Below while playing the Starstruck out with 2 blues undominated. But it really depends what they do. If they disrupt us in any way, we might have to reevaluate how we want to block. Or if they end up sending like a ton of damage, like if they have a Rousing Ancients turn here, or like a Zealous Belting turn, we probably can't afford to just take 8 damage or more by blocking only 3. They only hammer for 6 though, so I think I am just going to block 3, and if we end up taking 7 from a Pummel, then I guess we take 7 from a Pummel, but if we don't, that's pretty good for us. They must have had not a very good hand there. So I'd say that that was quite a good break. We get to either fatigue 3 cards or get some damage in here. And we have an defense reaction and arsenal, which is of course always a good sort of safety net. Not that we're probably going to have to use it this turn cycle, because they're probably going to end up blocking this Starstruck for quite a bit. But if they do really want to crippling crush us, they could like maybe block 3 and then crippling crush us, and that would be super good for us, I think, because we would have the Sink Below ready to go. Although there's a very high likelihood they don't have crippling crush in their arsenal, because they probably would have just thrown it at us last turn. So I don't think I want to use my Sink Below. I think a lot of people might take a pretty aggressive line here, which is Sink Below, blocking the hammer, sinking the sigil, looking for a blue to dominate the crippling crush. But I think that that's just like getting beaten by defense reaction and arsenal. It's getting beaten by armor. And I'd rather just block 3, hammer for 6, pitch stacking this crippling crush, and then gaining 3. Maintaining our Sink Below. And also setting up a pretty good threat in our pitch stack very early on. Probably end up blocking with the Choke Slam, since the Cranial Crush just represents a little bit more damage, is a blue later, but it's probably a pretty negligible decision there. But always trying to improve on my micro decisions, because if you play a lot of games, stuff will end up mattering. Like it might only matter in like 1 out of 250 games, but if you play thousands of games, it's going to happen a handful of times that it matters what blue you block with there. They end up giving us defense reaction. Not bad. If they're using defense reaction on hammer, I would say that's probably pretty good. So we're getting attacked for 11 this turn, presumably. I'm probably going to Fate Foreseen this, and then just take 7 to throw a Crippling Crush back. We could pitch stack the Crippling Crush, though, and block like 4 on the Zealous Belting, then block 3 on the hammer, taking a total of 4 damage. And then just pitch stack the Crippling Crush right behind the first Crippling Crush, which would also be pretty good. Of course, keeping our Sink Below and Arsenal for when he actually throws an attack that we really care about here. We see Spinal Crush on top, and if I'm planning to take 7 damage to Crippling Crush, I probably want Spinal Crush on top, but I could also put it on the bottom and have that be the follow-up to the Crippling Crush we pitch stacked. I think I'd probably keep it top here. Oh, it looks like I'm choosing bottom because I want it, maybe because I want a Crippling Crush here, and I still want to have a threat pitch stacked behind the Crippling Crush. Interesting thoughts here, like, because if I want a Crippling Crush here, I probably want a follow-up threat. So it would make sense to keep the Spinal on top as well. But we end up just taking a bunch of damage to throw the Crippling Crush. Now our pitch stack is Crippling Crush into Spinal Crush, and if we get to pitch a threat next turn, it'll be a pretty decent sort of 3 turns of Crippling Crush here. Ooh, we have Command and Conquer and Pummel, which is something I probably want to do because they don't have their crown. They use their crown on our Crippling Crush. But if they use their hand to protect, if they use their crown to protect their hand to keep 3 cards, they're probably doing something, here. Kind of just want to take this 6 so that I can pummel a Command and Conquer. But I'm afraid they're going to pummel me here or something. No, they just end up keeping it, which means their arsenal is probably a defense reaction, which is super good here. And they just let it go. Because they know we have the pummel if we took a bunch of damage. Oh, it was a Zealous Belting. Why didn't they Zealous Belting us last turn? Did they not have a blue that turned it on? Oh yeah, they just had double Rouse the Ancients. I think if I was them, I would have blocked with one of the Rouse the Ancients or the Zealous Belting instead of the Crown. Oh, did I skip ahead? Yeah, so we just deal 10. And this is a blocking hand for sure. I already have a defense reaction in Arsenal, so we can use the Fate Foreseen pretty liberally here. And we do see them throw a Crippling Crush, so I'm pretty sure I'm just going to block 10. Like, I'm going to block the Stamp Authority, Blue Chokeslam, and the Fate Foreseen, and then just planning to hammer back for 4. Bottoming the Thunderquake. I generally like to bottom my cards in the mirror, and I also like to activate Sync in the mirror. It just kind of gets you to your second cycle a little faster. It's pretty small, but we're going to need all the help we can get because they have less cards in their deck than us, so they'll get to second cycle first. This hand's a little unfortunate. We have a Sink Below in Arsenal, so we could get aggressive here and Sink Below our Crippling Crush so that we can pitch stack it a little bit better. Looking for a blue so that we can Zealous Belting them and then Arsenal like Sigil. We could also Sink Below the Sigil and have one of those really late because I feel like in the endgame situations, having a Sigil can be quite good to surprise your opponent, where maybe you're at 1 life and they hammer you for 4 and you only have to block with 1 card, and then like play your Sigil that you put in Arsenal or something. Yeah, there are a lot of options here actually. We could also just like block 2 with Zealous Belting and then hammer for 6 off the Crippling Crush and the Buckling Blow and play the Sigil. But it looks like I'm getting aggressive with the Sink Below. We sink the Crippling Crush so that we have a nice pitch stack going there. And we didn't draw the blue, but fortunately we draw one of our better reds, which is Command and Conquer. They just block 6, which is interesting because I think my line of play sort of makes it look like a pummel, but not too sure. We draw a hand that can't turn on Zealous Belting, which is a little unfortunate. We'd really like to just block 3 and then hammer him back for 10 with the pummel. We're up 2 armor in the crown. Kind of sucks we got to double pitch this Rouse the Ancients, but our opponent had to do that earlier, so I guess it's only fair that we have to pitch that as well. Let me just crank it up to 10. And they're going to staunch response it. It looks like for 7. Again, we draw a hand that can't really easily turn on the zealous belting. We're getting Command and Conquered though, which lines up kind of nice for us because we wanted to block with 2 of these cards anyway. So we're just going to end up blocking with Spinal and Red Buckling Blow, and since we have a Surge, we can just throw the other Red Buckling Blow right at him and sort of force some blocks because there's no way they want Buckling Blow to crush. They're definitely going to prevent that with at least a card and an armor block. Because if it crushes, it kind of gets 2 value by just putting a counter on one of these 2-block Temper / Battle Warns. Get another CNC Pummel turn, which is kind of nice. But they throw a CNC at us here. And I'm not sure I want to take 6 and lose my Zealous Belting. I think we could definitely use Crown here. If we use Crown here, we can get rid of our Zealous Belting to have that late. Maybe I kind of lost count of pitch stack, but it might even come a turn after the crippling, and then we'll have kind of a pretty mean pitch stack of like crippling into Spinal into, I think, nothing great actually. There might be like a turn off there, then into Zealous Belting. And that also allows us to arsenal our Sink Below because we're going to draw a card and we can just play Command and Conquer and Pummel off of the Showtime and whatever card we draw. If it's a blue, we can even make a Surge. So I actually kind of like that here. The other option, I guess, is to block like 6 with armor, but I don't like that as much. We could block 6 with armor and not sink our Zealous Belting, just keep it in arsenal. But I don't think that's as good. And we're just going to pummel this Command and Conquer. We've gotten to pummel 2 Command and Conquers this game, which is pretty good, pretty nice. Especially since he used his Crown before we played either one. And here he's definitely got to be thinking Pummel. Maybe the last turn wasn't as easily Pummel, but this one's definitely Pummel. Ooh, and he gives us a bunch of armor too. And we get a staunch response from Arsenal. That was a very, very mean pummeled Command and Conquer. Got a ton of value. We just have a huge armor lead. So we have Sink Below and Arsenal. We could get super greedy and Sink Below the Sigil looking for an attack. So I think any attack will allow us to rouse the Ancients. That's a little aggressive and greedy. This hammer is only for 4 though. We could just block with Buckle and pitch stack this Rouse the Ancients next to the Cranial Crush, coming in for 6 and gaining 3. I think I kind of like that. Sinking the Sigil, looking to turn on our Rouse, is aggressive and a little risky. Because we're not running Iron Wrought Boots, we can't really use our armor to protect us from a dominated crippling. We don't want to be giving them a quicken like on their terms. We want to be giving it to them on our terms when we think it'll be best for us. Or I guess worse, I can do nothing for them, rather. So having the defense reaction arsenal is a lot of value. I do end up making the play of pitch stacking the rouse and only blocking 3 while gaining a 3 life with the sigil. Here I think I just block 6. I think just block 6 with Visage and Buckle and then just throw the Buckling Blow. What the heck? What did I do? I just took 6? Oh, am I looking to buckle the Buckling Blow? Okay. Okay, past me. I don't hate that. We're going to get armor blocks. We might even get a reaction from Arsenal. So how much is this going to be? 9? So he has to have defense reaction Arsenal or he loses his tech plating. I think I like the conservative play more, but I guess in the moment I was just like, yeah, let's buckle the Buckling Blow. And I'm just going to pause to talk a little bit about like mind state in the middle of your game. Looking down at the game, not playing it from my vantage point here, I think it's pretty clear that you just block 6 and send the Buckling Blow and just keep sailing your way to more value. Like I had more life, I have bigger deck size, I have a defense reaction arsenal, I have more armor. There's no real reason for me to get out of line here and make big trades. Getting tectonic plating would be quite good, but them having a defense reaction arsenal is also, I think, quite like going to be a common occurrence. And if they have defense reaction arsenal, us just taking 6 damage to like do nothing kind of sucks. They wouldn't even have to block with tech plating. They could just block Crater Fist plus 4 from arsenal plus 3 from hand to cover up the whole 9. That would give us an even bigger armor advantage, but it's certainly not what we're trying to accomplish with this play. I think we're definitely looking to destroy tech plating. And in the middle of a game, sometimes you just see a hand that you want to combine, because I saw I had a surge, so I could just like buckle my Buckling Blow, and that's kind of fun. But thinking more about the game state and about like if it's actually reasonable to be conservative or that aggressive here compared to being conservative, I think is something that it takes, like, it's not easy to do. It's something that could really separate like a great player from just a good player. And now we'll just get back to the game. They block 5, but they don't defense reaction, so I'm wondering why they didn't block with tech plating. One of the interesting things about Buckling Blow and Buckle is, like, on Talishar it's not super easy to tell what I'm doing here. I think I put a counter on tech plating when I should have put a counter on Crater Fist and destroyed tech plating. But when it asked me what I wanted to do there, I was like, thought maybe it meant which one to destroy. So I undo, and then when I undo, he reverses his mistake. He just gives me the tech plating, which makes sense. I thought I hit for 4 though, so I should have been able to put a counter on this Crater Fist, but I don't know. Oh no, he blocked 6 that time. Yeah. So we see them just send a choke slam. I think there's a good chance they have Pummel here. And if they have Pummel, I think I'm supposed to like block with, no, I don't like blocking with armor here. I would rather use my huge armor advantage to like close the game out when my hand's better. Because if they have Pummel and I block with armor, sure I could use Sink Below and Sink Below, but I don't have a Surge, so I couldn't even throw Starstruck. All I could do is like Hammer and then Arsenal is Starstruck, and I don't think that's a good enough turn cycle to like use up most of my armor. We couldn't even use our Civic Steps because our Crackback isn't forcing them to block. So maybe I just block with one card, looking to one card and then Sink Below, on the off chance they don't have Pummel and it's just like a Sigil of Solace or something. And then if it is a Pummel, I guess we just take damage and discard Starstruck and then Hammer for 4, saving our second Sink Below. They do have the Pummel. I think I'll put Starstruck on the bottom. And then I'll just discard the card that's not a blue. And we're looking to just hammer here. Our life total is getting kind of low. I don't want to die to Pummel with all this armor up. So I am going to have to start looking for spots to use my armor for benefit. I believe that's the first Pummel they've played. So we can expect at least one more. I know a lot of builds are on 2 Pummel, but I think it's more common to see 3. They Pummel us. We're just going to Fate Foreseen and then Unmovable. I think this is a mistake. I think I'm supposed to Fate Foreseen and then Sink Below and then get hit for 2 instead of 1, and then Arsenal the Unmovable. And that's their second Pummel. Maybe they only have 2 because we're on turn 14, so they only have like 8 cards in their deck that they haven't seen yet. So maybe they only have 2 Pummel. They're hammering us for 6. I think I can just block with a blue and the Sink Below and Arsenal. And then hammer for, make a Surge, hammer for 6, then Arsenal the red Unmovable. Interesting that I'd block with Starstruck there instead of retaining that in my deck. I think that's probably a mistake. I think I'm doing a Pummel count there. Our hammer for 6 gets the Unmovable. They activate Hero and Hammer for 6 because they can't make a Surge anymore. And I think I just blocked for 3 here and then have a Zealous Belting turn, retaining the blue Unmovable, or red Unmovable rather. You can see I'm thinking about equipment because I don't want to die with equipment still there. Oh, interesting. I block with Civic Steps, thinking that he's at a low enough life that he's going to want to block this Zealous Belting and not be able to utilize the Quicken. I think I could have held off a little longer though. I think I can be at 6 here and not have a Quicken. Because they only need 3 cards to really have a good Quicken turn. They can go like Command and Conquer and a Hammer for 6. If they have a surge, it's even easier for them because it doesn't need to be command and conquer. It can be any of the attacks that cost 4 that would be discounted from surge. And it looks like they want to use this quicken, so they take a bunch of damage. I'm just going to pause this here and to think about this for a second. Maybe one of the big brain ways to use civic steps is to like incentivize your opponent into taking damage when they shouldn't. I haven't really thought about that much. It's probably not going to work that often, but that might have been what I did here, like unintentionally, because they took what, 7 damage, and I think that's just like a ton of damage for them to take here. But maybe they know they're at their pitch stack and they really just want to like flip the tempo here. Maybe another reason why I shouldn't have used civic steps is because it gives them a real easy way to utilize their hand aggressively and to grab tempo back. So, but also, like, why are they starting with hammer? Like, if they play the attack they wanted to have go, like, if they can play an attack and hammer, wouldn't they play the attack first so that the hammer was worth 6 instead of 4? So if we're assuming that they're making good decisions, the only thing I can think that this could possibly be is Pummel, right? Because they didn't make a surge because they can't. They didn't activate Bravo. They didn't attack with an attack first and then hammer afterwards for it to be more efficient. So I think we can pretty easily put them on Pummel here. Which means I think my block here is bad. I think I'm supposed to block 6 because I'm just expecting Pummel. I don't think I went through the rationale in my head. And of course they do have Pummel. And I think I'm just going to end up using the unmovable here. Like, we can't take 7 damage down to 1. Which is kind of a bummer. Because I think we could have taken 4 if we just blocked 6 and saved our unmovable. We do still have 5 block left in our armor though, so if they like crippling crush us, we can just block with armor instead of die. And we just hit our pitch stack. We remember the crippling crush with the spinal crush right after. But we're probably going to end up blocking with this spinal crush and then just throwing crippling crush blind. Or not blind, but like undominated. And I think we can easily just take 3 down to 5. Him already using all of his pummels, we don't really have to be afraid of dying to pummel without utilizing our armor. That's like the one card that can kill you when you're not expecting it and don't have a opportunity to use your equipment unless you use it before they pummel, and you don't want to be overblocking stuff with equipment. Crippling Crush definitely going to be getting 3 cards here. They don't have 2 on armor. The issue for him is, though, even though he stopped the crush effect, taking 3 damage is just like a lot. And I think this endgame favors us just tremendously. We have so much armor and more life. We are going to end up tear asunder. Just because on the off chance he doesn't have a defense reaction here. He didn't use defense reaction on Crippling Crush, although he didn't have to because it wasn't dominated. But you think maybe he would have used it just to like take 1 less damage while retaining a card. And Tear Asunder might just win the game here. It does end up being a defense reaction, so we see that they're making like kind of conservative plays, like just block the Crippling Crush and save the defense reaction. We have so much armor here that we can almost just like block with all of our armor and have a Rouse the Ancients, Arsenal the Crippling Crush turn. But we should probably see what he's going to do. It's just a hammer for 6, so I think I'd do just like block 5 with armor, take 1, and then have a Crippling Crush turn. Or a Rouse the Ancients turn. Don't want to dominate Crippling Crush because it could still just lose to reaction. and Rouse the Ancients ought to get all of his cards blocking while we're still able to have a Crippling Crush and Arsenal. Just had to reload the browser a few times there. It's been happening a little bit more lately. So they actually just end up blocking 7 here, and then they're probably just going to block 6. Well, they end up only being able to block 5, so they go to 1, and then we have a Crippling Crush and Arsenal. We could straight up just Rouse the Ancients them again here. Oh no, you know what I can do? I can just Zealous Belting into Crippling Crush. This is 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And that beats everything, I think. I don't think there's a combination of cards that this loses to. Because he has to block 2 here. Oh no, I guess this could be red unmovable in Arsenal. But it is not, and we end up taking the game. So that was kind of an interesting one. The mirror is always a lot of fun. It's always... There's some things that are very important, like armor advantage, tempo, pitch deck advantage. You generally want to be making good trades, but because a lot of your threats are only good value when they're crushing and your opponent has defense reactions, sometimes it can be hard to gauge what trades are good. Like, you don't want to be taking a bunch of damage just to dominate an attack that they can easily stop, either with, their armor or if they have an arsenal. There's something to be said about getting their armor out of the way when you can, but oftentimes they're going to find an opportunity to use their armor. You don't want to be paying a ton of life just to throw an attack that can be stopped by a little armor. It just seems like a very dynamic matchup. Again, not sure if I need 70 cards or if I like 60 cards. I have like 10 more cards in my deck than they do at the end of the game. They have 17 and I have 27. So if it ever devolved into hammer for 6, block 6, hammer for 6, block 6, back and forth, they're going to be the ones that really need to figure that end game out, because I just have 10 more cards. So it's very easy for me to play ball there and just like not need to do anything, like make them be the one to do something. I think that game kind of got out of hand for our opponent. We got to pummel a Crippling Crush twice, and that's just like a very good threat in the mirror. As you saw, we got to get rid of a Zealous Belting, and we got to get rid of a red Staunch Response. Because they used Crown early on something that wasn't a Command and Conquer, I wouldn't really recommend doing that. I think Crown in this matchup should definitely be saved for Command and Conquer. And even when you don't get to use it on a pummeled Command and Conquer, a lot of the times it incentivizes your opponent to just not trade a bunch of life to pummel a Command and Conquer, because you have Crown. They're probably thinking, oh, I'm not even going to get like the additional value. Sure, they're going to discard a card, but they're still going to have like a 3 or 4 card hand, depending how many cards they block with initially. So yeah, it's a fun matchup. I think there's a lot to learn. I definitely made like a few mistakes in this game, and I think that there's just always work to be done. I've probably played this matchup 500 times, and it's still something I need to work on. I'm not perfect, but I definitely try to be, and I definitely try to improve as much as possible whenever I can. So hopefully this was a fun one. Hopefully we learned quite a bit, and I'll see you guys next week when I post more videos. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, also, comment, like, subscribe down below. In the description of this video, I will have a link to the deck. I will have a link to my Patreon. And yeah, I only have one thing uploaded to my Patreon now, just started it this week, but I'm definitely looking forward to what I'm going to post there next week. I already have an idea, and I think it'll be something you guys don't want to miss. So I hope you guys have a great day, and again, thanks for stopping by.